Welcome to Veritas True Crime Podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to Veritas True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse. In recognition of Stalker Awareness Month, I'm actually releasing this episode earlier than I had planned to. January 2022 is National Stalking Awareness Month in the United States. In my opinion, it should be an international month of learning and recognition around the world. The purpose of National Stalking Awareness Month is to encourage you to learn more about the prevalent, dangerous, and often misunderstood crime of stalking. Our story doesn't have a whole lot of mystery involved. We know right away who the killer is. But this story reads out like fiction. It's hard to believe some of the facts that we learn along the way. The significance of this story is that Lauren Giddings was a victim of stalking. Her stalker obsessed with her, spying on her, and absolutely creeping her out. The stories of victims of stalking, although not as popular, in my opinion, definitely deserve a place in true crime podcasts, so I hope you'll stick with me. Just a quick content warning, there is graphic depictions of murder, dismemberment, stalking, and very strong language. If you think that you'll be affected, please check our show notes for more information. Firstly, here are some important statistics. Stalking is a crime that in Australia affects 1 in 10 people, and no surprise, women make up 75% of stalking victims. In the United States, more than 1 million women and 370,990 men are the victims of a stalker. With that, anyone can be a victim of stalking. It is so prevalent that statistics estimate around 8% of women and 2% of men in the United States alone have been stalked at some point in their lives. The majority of people who report that they're being stalked often know the person who is stalking them. Quite often, it's an ex-partner. It's important to remember that if someone's behavior is making you feel unsafe, scared, or uncomfortable, it is not okay. Even if that person is an ex-partner, is an ex-friend, a colleague, or even a family member, you have the right to seek help. You have the right to be safe and to be free from harassment. There are a number of organizations out there that are willing and able to help you. The most important thing for you to remember is you should seek out help and support as soon as possible. Do not let things escalate. Take every reasonable step that you can to make yourself safe and secure. Stalking is a method that is used by someone who is trying to exert power over you. They're trying to control you, and they're trying usually to punish you, especially true if the person making you feel unsafe is an ex-partner, and you left the relationship or you rejected them. So what exactly is stalking? The Office on Violence Against Women at the Department of Justice in the United States defines stalking as engaging in a course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for their safety or the safety of others or suffer substantial emotional distress. Stalking is where someone is repeatedly calling you, following you, harassing you, or spying on you and causing you fear, anxiety, and stress. Sometimes stalkers make threats to and may harass your family members, your pets, your children, or work colleagues. These days, stalking doesn't have to be occurring physically. It's also possible that you could be the victim of cyberstalking. Your stalker uses the internet and social media sites to harass you, as well as your phone, iPad, computer, or even CCTV. It is common, especially for women, to blame themselves for being a victim of stalking. I don't know who needs to hear it, but I hope that you hear me when I tell you, you are never to blame for someone else's actions. If you are currently the victim of a stalker, please seek out some support. I'm going to post some really handy links on our show website for this particular episode. You have the right to live free from fear and anxiety caused by some dickhead who won't leave you alone. You have my support, and I'm sure the support of many others. Also important to know, in Australia, stalking is a crime. Stalking was made a criminal offence in England and Wales in 2012. In the United States, although elements required to constitute stalking are varied, the federal government and all 50 states have enacted laws that have made stalking a criminal act. Lauren Giddings was born April 18, 1984, in Tacoma Park, Maryland, to Karen and William, or Bill, Giddings. She had two sisters, Caitlin and Sarah, and a Pekingese poodle named Butterbean. She liked field hockey, softball. She grew up and went to Catholic school in Laurel, Maryland, until the 8th grade. And then she went to Atholton High School in Columbia. She was a member of St. Mary of the Mills Catholic Church in Laurel. In 2002, Lauren moved to Georgia to attend Agnes Scott College, where she studied and graduated with a major in political science and a minor in religious studies. She moved home to Maryland in 2006 after graduation, and she started work for the National Center for Public Policy in Washington, D.C. Later, she decided to pursue a career in law. Her dream was to work as a public defender so that she could help people. She applied and was accepted to Mercer University's Walter F. George School of Law, and again moved to Georgia in 2008. For those other true crime nerds who are thinking that the name of this school sounds familiar, the spectacular Nancy Grace attended and got her JD there. While she was a student there, Lauren served as president of the Federalist Society. Now, according to Wikipedia, that's an organization of conservatives and libertarians that advocate for a textualist and originalist interpretation of the United States Constitution. Lauren was excited to be elected president of the Mercer Society, but she'd also said to her boyfriend David, "But my creepy neighbor was elected vice president." Lauren Giddings had recently graduated on the 14th of May 2011 from law school. She received a Juris Doctorate. Instead of moving back home to Maryland, she decided to stay in Georgia, and she would soon be moving in with her boyfriend, David. A career in criminal law was before her, with only one last hurdle, the Georgia bar exam. She was known by her friends, colleagues, and classmates as being social, athletic, friendly, and outgoing. When asked why Lauren had decided to head south to go to college, her best friend Katie O'Hare said she was a country girl at heart, and she loved the South. One of her law school classmates, Stephen Mark McDaniel, born 1986 in Lilburn, Georgia, had taken a particular interest in her. He'd asked her out on a date a few times previously, and she had rejected him. She was actually in a relationship with David Vandiver, a man 20 years her senior. Stephen was the complete opposite of Lauren. He seemed to enjoy time alone and stay inside his apartment, rarely leaving, playing video games, watching pornography, and admiring his guns and swords. Stephen was also a doomsday prepper. He was socially awkward, a bit of an outcast with antisocial and withdrawn mannerisms. He was very smart, according to people who knew him. Although they knew about each other, they had very little to do with each other. McDaniel, however, became obsessed with Lauren. She had described him to her boyfriend as a creepy and weird social recluse, though never to his face. Lauren and McDaniel were not friends. David Vandiver said in a 2016 interview that Lauren had most probably treated McDaniel with more respect than he had ever received in his whole life, but also that she had no desire to socialize with him. Lauren had never mentioned that she was afraid of McDaniel, she just wasn't interested. On June 24, 2011, Lauren and some of her friends had arranged a celebration together. The group met and had drinks and then ended up back at Ashley Morehouse's apartment where Lauren's ex, Joe, also lived. Lauren spent the night at her friend's place. She actually spent the night in Joe's room, though it's completely unknown what happened in the room that night. At some point through the evening, Lauren had mentioned to her friends that she believed someone was stalking her. Her friends thought that Lauren was being a bit dramatic. She had plenty of male admirers. She told her friends that she believed someone had been breaking into her apartment and that her things had been touched and moved. This had happened on more than one occasion, and she told her friends about an instance from around a year before where she had come home and items had been moved around inside. Early the following morning, Lauren had gone to the Healy Country Club. It's around 10 miles from her apartment in Macon. She spent most of the day relaxing at the pool. We know that there was a charge at 5:49 p.m. at the Zaxby's drive-thru on her way home. However, this was the last time anyone saw her. Lauren would later be attacked and murdered in her own home in the early hours of June 26, 2011. Unfortunately, it was several days before anyone reported Lauren missing. Lauren had told her family and friends that she would be studying non-stop for a while in order to get ready for the bar exam. It was only after one of her friends called Caitlin, Lauren's sister, and let her know that she hadn't been able to get in touch with Lauren. Friends and family obviously started to worry. Lauren's family asked Ashley and her boyfriend to attend the apartment to see if they were able to find her. Ashley had a spare key, so of course she said she would go. This was June 30th. Ashley was later interviewed by Dateline's Keith Morrison, and she told him that she had a bad feeling before they went inside. So much so that Ashley turned to her boyfriend and asked him if he was prepared to see whatever it was that they may find when they walked in. He agreed, so they turned the key and entered the apartment. Inside, it looked like Lauren had started to pack her belongings. She was supposed to be moving to David's place about an hour away, but she hadn't finished. Her study books, keys, purse were all there on the table, except where was Lauren? Ashley and her boyfriend decided that they would wait around in Lauren's apartment. They figured that she might be out for a run and she'd be coming back soon. Her car was parked outside still, so she obviously hadn't gone far. However, when Lauren didn't return after several hours of waiting, Ashley called Lauren's parents in Maryland and explained what they had found in the apartment. Lauren's dad decided that he would drive the 11 hours to the apartment and start searching for her. Just before 1 a.m., at 12:52, police were called and Lauren was reported as a missing person. Immediately, police began searching for her. Now, for those who are wondering, her beloved pooch, Butterbean, was actually with family in Maryland. Lauren had been there for her sister's wedding recently. In fact, her sister and her new husband were on their honeymoon while all this was happening. At around 1 a.m., two Macon police officers, David Descoteau and Doug Copeland, arrived at Lauren's apartment. They observed that there were no signs of a struggle inside, and during a brief investigation, they noted that it didn't seem as though anything was missing or stolen. Although the fact that Lauren had left her purse, her phone, her computer, and other personal items, that seemed unusual for someone to leave if they had gone away. The officers contacted a detective who asked them to write a report which would be forwarded to the detective bureau for follow-up in the morning, and then to leave the premises. Detective Patterson and crime scene investigators with other detectives returned to Lauren's apartment at around 9 a.m. They were beginning an investigation. When investigators were unable to find anything inside the apartment, they decided to widen the search for clues to the immediate area around the apartments. Outside, one of the detectives told producers of the show In Ice Cold Blood on Oxygen that the wind changed direction at that moment and they were hit with a very familiar smell. By following that smell of death, the detectives were led to the area where the trash was kept ready for weekly collection. They said that it had a very distinctive smell, so they had a good feeling that they would find a body there. Interestingly, it was garbage collection day that day, and when the police had arrived, they had parked where they could, and that happened to be blocking the garbage bins. When the garbage truck rolled down the street, the driver saw that he wasn't able to access the bins, so he gave a smile and a wave to the detectives standing by their cars and continued driving without collecting the trash. This story could have had a very different outcome had the driver of the garbage truck been able to collect those bins. Bibbs County Sheriff Lieutenant Randy Gonzalez opened the bin, and two large black bags were inside. The first bag was just trash. However, Randy Gonzalez said that the second bag was much heavier, and he was certain he was going to find human remains inside. Indeed, inside the bag was the torso of a white female. It weighed 92 pounds, or approximately 41 kilos. No other limbs were attached. It had been decapitated and the arms and legs removed.